Hey everybody, this is TG Watkins with simplertrading.com, and this is your Daily 5 from StockCharts.com. Alright, so some of the things we're going to be getting into, I'm going to be looking at ETFs because I think that right now the market is really weird. I think you've probably been hearing a bit about that the market's just kind of acting up, it's kind of having a hard time. There are things that are moving up. We're getting all sorts of stuff because we're in the middle of earnings season. So it has been really tough to make heads or tails of this market. And so what I'm doing to try and give a little bit of insight and some things to talk about and some stuff to look at is I'm zooming out. And the way that I'm zooming out is I'm looking at the higher time frame indices. So if we look here, we have the monthly, we have the weekly, and we have the daily. And this is what I'm going to be showing you for the next few charts. And so because we're getting just a lot of weird stuff going on the lower time frames. We're getting a lot of breakdowns, but then we're getting rotation into industrials for a little bit. The money is just kind of moving all over the place, which seems to be keeping the indexes up, but underneath the surface, all sorts of craziness is kind of happening. So do keep that in mind when I talk about this and what's going on. Also, keep in mind that we've got a lot of cross currents going out there. You know, we've got the COVID still kind of lingering out there with the Delta variant, but then we also have the economy trying to reopen. We also have the Fed doing things, and then right now, inflation. Inflation is a big conversation. We just had the CPI, which came out under expectations, which people are happy about. But then we have the PPI, which came out double from what the expectations were. They were expecting 0.5%. It came out at 1%. And I think for July, we're at 7.8%, which is the highest since 2010 when they recalibrated it. But then since that, it's also been the highest on record since the 1980s. So this is it could be a big deal. And as I said, we got a lot of cross currents going on out there. And then also keep in mind, we're in August. We're in the middle of summer, and you know, we got the summer doldrums. A lot of people are out on vacation. A lot of the big players, you know, I even think about it. If I'm on vacation, you know, I've got a lot of subscribers, and think about every time I put on a trade, that's a lot of money behind me. Well, I'm hardly putting on any trades, so myself and my influence is having very little input into the market. So just kind of keep that in mind, what's going on here. So with our first chart, what we're going to be looking at is FFTY. This is the IBD 50, and it's an ETF, so it's, you know, trying to look at the 50 top stocks that they put in there. Yes, it changes over time, but just as an idea of seeing where we're at. And remember, this is the monthly chart on the left. So for, what is that, like 6 months, the IBD 50 has been going basically sideways. Yeah, we've had some moves up here and some moves down here, but if you look at the candles, we have been going sideways for 6 months, and that is kind of indicative of a lot of stuff out there. And then you can see here, even on there's the weekly and then the daily still kind of just basically in a range. Obviously a lot of chop in between there. Now, what I do want to call your attention to is here on the monthly chart. This blue line is the monthly 10 SMA. Notice how price is basically staying above it, and that the SMA is coming up to meet price. So that's kind of our make or break. Is price going to bounce off of that monthly 10 and move up? Or if once it gets there, is it going to fall below it because once it tests it, it won't hold it? So that's something I'm watching. And then here on the weekly chart, this is the weekly 50 SMA. And you can see price bounced off of it. So that should be good. That should be bullish. We can also see that the 8 EMA is over the 21 EMA, so that's bullish. And we can see here that generally price is staying above the daily 200, and again, we are back on top of the daily 50 SMA. So for now, this looks bullish. It looks like it's just flagging bullishly, and we're going to have to wait and see whenever it's going to finally decide to move up or down. As far as our next one, we got the IWM, so this is the Russell. I put this one next because it reminds me very much of the FFTY, of the IBD 50. This is the small caps. You know, this is where I made a ton of money back when this thing was rip-roaring from November to February. Now, same thing as the IBD. It's been going sideways for several months, and it's kind of putting some weird spin on the market. But also, like the IBD 50, notice that prices come right here to the monthly 10, and so far it's holding it. So far I'm looking at this as still being bullish, but we do ultimately need to make sure that price stays above it. Oftentimes, if things are going to go down, it will get to that moving average. People are trying to fight over it, trying to say, okay, is this support or is it not? And if it's not going to be support, it'll start to go back down through that moving average once it reaches it. So that's why we're still looking at it and waiting and watching. Now here on the weekly, price is not quite at the weekly 50, but the weekly 50 is still coming up, and we're trying to figure out if something around there is going to be support. And then we've kind of got a push-pull here on the daily. We're over the daily 200, but we're underneath the daily 50. So which one's going to win? We don't quite know yet because ultimately price looks like it's basically going sideways right now. For the bear camp, we could see that this could be a bear flag. Price went down, pulled back into resistance, and then is going to roll over. That's a possibility. And in the bull camp, we could say price pulled back, held support, is going sideways until it starts to move up higher. Which way is it going to be? We don't know yet. All right, so then we move on to the next one. This is RACE. So RACE as far as the ticker, this is Ferrari. Just another stock that I kind of came across that I looked at and said, hey, okay, what are we looking here? As far as strength goes, it's been following the monthly 10, just like the two other ETFs that I showed. This should be good. This looks pretty great. Looks like price pulled back into this moving average, flagged a little bit sideways, and then decided to move up. And then on the weekly, look at this. Price has been holding the weekly 50 like a champ. Doing great. And in fact, we even got a new Moxie price trigger fire to the upside. How about on the daily chart? We've had price generally holding the daily 200. And even in through here, just I think last week, we had price bounce off of and test and hold the daily 50. Now, as far as an entry goes, I'd like to see price come down a little bit from here. I don't want to be entering up there. I'd like to have a little bit of a pullback. And so if that pulls back and then continues to move up, this should be good, and we should be seeing new all-time highs eventually in Ferrari. The other argument would be, well, this could be a double top. What if that's what that is? What if we are just seeing the beginning of a double top? That's a possibility too. But right now, this thing looks more bullish than bearish, and so I'd go with that until I see otherwise. And then we look at ARK. Now, this is ARKK, which is their technology ETF. Now, I understand that there is a lot of conversation about ARK and about Cathie Woods and all that stuff. So say what you want about them and that. I look at this as an ETF and just another guide for the markets. And what I'm seeing is price has pulled back generally into the monthly 10. I know we could say it's kind of pushing through it, but they can they're not always strong or not always hard. They can sometimes kind of push through and then bounce up. But generally the monthly 10 is in an upward direction. It looks like price is pulled back to it. On the weekly, we have price holding the weekly 50. So that generally looks pretty good. In fact, it looks, I'd say it's an inverse head and shoulders, right? So that could be good too. And then I also see that the 8 is over the 21. We've got a squeeze and the Moxie indicator is still above 0, that kind of stuff. And then as far as the daily, this is kind of where we get a little bit mixed, but it doesn't look too terrible either. We've had price move up over the daily 50, and then we had price move down into the daily 50, and so far it's holding the daily 50. So until we can prove otherwise, by having price fall off of this and fall off of this is looking like it's basically just going sideways, waiting for some support to move higher. And the Moxie indicator is right here, ready to go to the upside if we are going to be moving to the upside. So I am cautiously bullish here. I'd like to see these things move up because that means the market's doing well. But this is the kind of stuff that we've been dealing with for several weeks is the market just going sideways. And ultimately, we step out bigger and the market really hasn't been doing too much here either. And ARK is just another way to looking at it. Now, as our final slide that we're going to be looking at, this is the UVXY. This is the leverage ETF of the volatility of the VIX. And I like to look at this because sometimes it can give me a heads up as to what's going on in the markets before anything else shows me. And what we saw for a little bit over the last few weeks is there was a level starting to build and form in the UVXY, which was telling me like, uh-oh, if the UVXY goes up, that means the market goes down, and that's going to be a problem. So I was keeping a real close eye on it, especially right in through here when we had these kind of spikes up. But once that happened and the market looked like it was not going to roll over, it was actually going to hold, I saw that UVXY broke below the hourly 50, and it's just been going down like this. Now, this should be good for the market. Now, the market's holding up. It's not exactly going anywhere exciting, but it is holding up. And so I do want to see that. My only concern is that the UVXY might be getting oversold and there might be a bounce in this, which means there might be a pullback in the market. So keep an eye on the UVXY, make sure this thing keeps going down. That'll be good for the market, but also watch out for bounce, and we'll have to see where that bounce goes after that. So thanks again for a few minutes out of your day for watching the Daily 5 provided by you from StockCharts.com. And if anybody has any more questions or wants to see anything more about me, this is where you can check out my information, free newsletter that I write twice a week. And then you can see what my life is like out there. I post a lot of pictures on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. So go take a look and see what you can do. And if you have any more questions, these are where you can find me, especially profitpilot.com. And yeah, there you go. So simplertrading.com/stockcharts-TG if you have any particular questions. Do have interactive questions and answers, live trading, all the kind of stuff and goodies if you guys are interested in getting into trading and want to go out there and make some trading the Moxie way. So thanks again for your time. Appreciate it.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're going to bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.